Camera for Donnie.
Go for Donny.
Sound for Donnie.
Go for Donny.
Makeup for Donny.
Go for Donny.
We're both for Donnie.
Go for Donny.
Grip department for Donnie.
Go for Donny.
Wardrobe for Donny.
Go for Donny.
Gary for Donny.
Go for Donny. What's up, everybody? Hey, guys. Welcome to Go for Donny. I'm your host, and that right there, that is Gary Shaffer, a.k.a. The Hair. Oh, my God. Guys, don't forget, after this, stay tuned for more Go for Donny. Switch to Channel 2, where we'll get a chance to ask our guests some questions that you, the listener, want to get answers for. We'll also have an amazing car enthusiast that has some insane knowledge. This kid's crazy. He has insane knowledge in all types of vehicles, and he gets to ask a few questions from his perspective. But the catch there, Gary, is that he's only 15. So I can't wait to see what Max has. Gary Shaffer, welcome to Go for Donny, man. I'm so excited to have you on. We've spent a lot of time in the trenches together.
Indeed, we have. Thanks. I appreciate it. I'm really excited to be here. When you first reached out, I thought there's nobody more gifted to do a podcast than the world famous Donny McGuire. And the stories we have, I love going down memory lane and rehashing them. And it was just a fun experience.
And I love that you say that, because that actually, Gary, that was one of the brainchilds of this, or one of the reasons why we decided to do this podcast, is because, you know, we had so many fun stories. We do have so many fun stories to share. And that's all we did when we get together, is we would talk about these crazy shenanigans that happened behind the scenes on Top Gear and other shows and branded content as well, but mostly Top Gear. And everyone that wasn't a part of Top Gear would get sick of them. Like my wife, she's like, "Oh, I don't want to hear any more stories." So what do? We decide we're going to tell everybody these stories and get them out there, because they're so much fun. And I was literally thinking about it, Gary. I told you last week I was walking, and I was just thinking in my head how many amazing moments on Top Gear I've had, and those were all because of you. You were directing, and you would always ask me to do something fun and crazy, and I would, of course, say yes. So I can't thank you enough. But even before we got there, I think we had to build trust. I think across the board with everybody, with between you and I, between myself and other directors, between myself and the cast, between myself and the crew. I mean, everyone. We needed to build that trust amongst everyone, so that way we could continue working and know that our job is going to be safe and it was going to get done in a timely manner. So I think that really helped us as a group. And I keep preaching that about trust and the camaraderie that we had on that show. How some would step in and stay with the group. Others would step in and we would weed them out. So it's a testament to the ones that were able to come in and stay and be a part of our group, because it was such a cool experience, at least for me and some of the other guys. And I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think, just for the obviously for the crew members that are listening, it's obvious, but to the not just the fans and listening to it, it's like it was, I've been in production for 25 years, and Top Gear was just one of the greatest experiences and most unique experiences of all the shows I've ever done. And the reason why it was just because it was a very specific type of person that needed to do this show and be a part of this show.
Right.
It was, obviously coming to the American market, it turned in, we had a big shoes to fill with the template that was created and the fan base that the UK version had. But to really kind of, it was just it was an anomaly, like how we would, go out to these beautiful places, beautiful locations, and we kind of had a plan what our storyline was going to be, but we would just make up so much stuff on the fly. and it was such a, it's cars, it's fast cars, it's, beautiful cars, sexy cars. We call it car porn. All that stuff was like, it was, there were so many expectations, and it was such a, like, there was so much pressure on us to really sort of deliver, but it was it was such a small group that made at we had so many different camera angles that it felt like a huge production. But the reality was, it was a stealth production. It was, I don't know how many people were on the crew, but 30 to 40 in the crew out in the field is maybe realistic. But we were, it was just fast cars and doing dangerous things. And it was like, how do we elevate and keep it like really fun and stupid and dangerous and still keep it a really safe environment? And every shoot day was just that, like reinventing that. And Tanner, what do you think about this? Rut, you think you can climb up that wall? And just the craziest things. And it was so fun, the shit we would come up with every single day.
I love how safety conscious you are, Gary. Always thinking about safety.
Well, that was your job. So for the outside people, Donnie was responsible for safety on the crew. He was the assistant director, and so I would just be the wild child, would come up with great ideas, but Donnie would sort of like, that's kind of cutting it a little too close on the danger zone. But we always, I always loved to push the boundaries, and there was nobody better than Donny McGuire
well, thank you, Gary. Push the boundaries and throw me into danger's way to make sure it's safe. I don't know. There's so many stories. So, I mean, as I scrolled through my list and I was looking at all these photos and just great memories, and there's so many of you, Gary. And there's one. I mean, I'll just start with the whole episode of Homemade RVs. I have this amazing photo. It's me with Beardy riding on the side step of the Suburban with the antennas out, and I'm walking. I got my tack vest on, and this is in the infield of the dirt oval track, where we'll get into exactly what we did there. And then you're behind me walking. It's a really great black and white photo that Mikey Schneier took of it, and just captures. And there's even a little sliver of one of the motorhomes that looks like the windows were popped out of, because it was a crazy freaking shoot, y'all. It was crazy from the minute we started to maybe we stopped. So I can think of maybe 4 or 5 great memories from that shoot. Gary, do you have any? Just one, maybe? I don't know.
Oh, God. Just to set up the scene, it was, the dirt track at Charlotte. And we had, our competition was to create, obviously, the RVs, these homemade RVs, and then race against real NASCAR drivers in other RVs. Just the most ridiculous concept ever, but what could go wrong? So, but one of my favorite was, a lot of the, if you watch the show, there's so many different GoPros and different angles, and the people that were responsible for them are our lovely POV crew, Greg and Roche. They had cameras all over, inside and outside of these RVs, and I'm driving the lead vehicle with Peacock shooting out the back. We're driving around the track as fast as possible, leading all these lunatics of our host Tanner, Rut, and Adam, and 2 or 3 different NASCAR drivers, I think. Yeah. And it was chaos, because they were, we wanted it to feel like, and it was like it was a real race, and they were bouncing into each other a little bit. Well, they are so competitive. Everybody was so competitive. They just started bashing into each other, smashing into each other. And we just kept driving and driving, and mud is coming into Peacock's face and camera, and he can't hold his shot. And it was just like, it was so fun. And the whole sequence must have lasted 10 minutes or something like that.
It was quick, yeah.
And at the end of it, you just see Greg and Roche coming out on the track, like, cut, coming out like, you assholes, screaming and yelling. And they were so pissed, because I think they had like 50 GoPros, and we must have destroyed 25 of them. And we literally, like, there was just GoPro heads and bodies and pieces all over the track, mashed into the mud. And it was just like, it was hilarious to us. But to them, who, obviously that was their little pride and joy, we had just destroyed their whole department and all of their inventory. And it was just like, it was I mean, it was frustrating, but it was one of the funniest things ever.
GFD is a BFD.
This
Oh,
technology these days.
oh my God, I apologize. All right.
You
So,
mean it's in the box? It's in the box. Oh, I know. I was talking about the dirt track. I was kind of setting it up with the guys in their homemade RVs. Adam, who I was able to have on a previous episode of Go For Donny, did talk about the Flatiron building that he had on top of his car. And about how he was racing that around until he finally dumped it. I think one of the NASCAR drivers bumped into him and tipped it over. That was a crazy moment. But even before that, when we first got to the track, we had to, it was a dirt track, just so y'all know. It's a short dirt old track. And so what they do is they go out there with these rollers and they kind of chop up the dirt and then they spray it. And then they have these vehicles that, you have to go out and mash down, and you're supposed to just drive in a circle and mash it down, flatten it. I mean, these are old beat up vehicles. And so I was able, and everyone of course jumped into the vehicles and wanted to do it. Instead of driving, I don't know, responsibly and flattening it down like we were supposed to be doing, everyone was out in these piece of shit cars, like drifting the cars, just sliding them around the track instead of flattening them down. So at the end of that time, I came in. I don't know if you remember, Gary, but I was driving that van, that really dumpy, crappy, dirty van, and I came up and you handed me the American flag, and then I took a couple of laps of the American flag with that van. That was a moment. That was a moment. Single tear, right there.
indeed it
So.
was.
So that was just the beginning to set it up, and then we got into the race where the three hosts were racing the three NASCAR drivers, and that's where it got crazy. A little bumping and rubbing, some windows taken out, a lot of GoPros lost, maybe some media too, some pissed off crew members. But then Gary says, we don't have enough coverage. We need some more coverage. So what do? We throw myself in one of the motorhomes. I think Beardy, Jeremy was in one of the other motorhomes, and I don't know what happened to the other one. And so we just kept going around the track with the other two hosts, with Rutledge and Tanner driving around until you got the coverage. And that was another one of the best moments of my life, where I got to drive that 35-foot motorhome and literally drift it. You felt the back end cutting around, driving like a jackhole. And you look down and there's, Rutledge driving that piece of shit Honda that was extended, loud as hell. I mean, it was just an amazing time. But that was just one of a few amazing moments from that shoot, Gary.
Yeah.
Might you know what other moment I might be talking about during that shoot that you put me through? It just goes back to that whole safety thing, that you're very safety conscious.
I try to block those out, to be honest with you. I never put you in harm's way, Donnie.
So let me set it up for the listeners. So here we are. We get to, I don't even know where the hell we were. We were in North Carolina, and we wanted to test their homemade RVs to see how they do in a hurricane. So what do we have to replicate the hurricane? We have big industrial fans and water, and I don't know, sand buckets and lawn furniture, and the noodle for pools. And so to test it out, I put on a helmet and goggles and some wet gear, and then stood out in front of those fans as Gary and company, and the host, I think, even joined in, throwing shit at me and testing it out to see if it was safe enough to put the hose through, which we eventually put the hose through and did the same thing. So I can't thank you enough for that, Gary. Another amazing moment.
The greatest test dummy ever, Donny McGuire. I mean, put that on your resume too. And it was like, I think it's good, but more dirt, more feathers. We were just like chucking shit at you. You were like, it's fine. It's, all right, we're good.
It's not hurting them. It's not hurting them.
So great. I love
Gary
it. Yes.
Shaffer.
That was
that was a moment. And then I don't know. I think that whole filming at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the infield in the area, for y'all that don't know, there's an area called Redneck Hill. And that's where all the rednecks go, if you can afford the infield passes, where they set up their homemade RVs and camp. And it was amazing.
Yeah, and Redneck Hill, like the greatest celebrity to ever show up there would be none other than Rutledge Wood.
That's
So when
right.
we walked in there with him, people went fucking bananas. It was crazy. Like they were just rushing him. I think we were on a bus, right? A school bus or something.
Yeah,
Or
we did. We went on a walk down where they all park and they party at night, and there were so many buses and RVs and all these that were remodeled, and they were actually pretty nice. There were some really nice ones.
it was amazing. So just to walk that with Rut and him just getting to meet fans and just experience that environment in and be with him and just talk to those people and just it was such a great experience that I loved
The
it
the
and
mayor
Rut's
of the mayor of
just the
NASCAR.
kindest kid. Yeah, oh, completely. And he's just for everybody that knows him, he just has such a kind soul and funny and just gives everybody the time of day and it, it was magical. It really was. I loved it.
And I don't think you remember. We picked up a straggler, some guy that wanted to hang out, so he dragged our cooler around for us. Well, when we tooled around the infield, it was pretty amazing.
Oh God, I do
See,
remember that guy. It was
yep,
great.
yep, and
Yeah,
some interesting characters.
that really that was an amazing experience by all means.
I mean, just want to marry Gary. Just want to marry. I do remember another one. We did episode of Toughest Trucks. In where did we film? We filmed out at Eagle Mountain. That's right, Eagle Mountain out
Oh,
there by the border of Arizona. It's hot. It's an old abandoned mine that they rented out for film shoots, and we took full advantage out there. I think we pulled down some power poles, if I recall right. That kind of just as soon as
it was
Rutledge hit the
amazing.
gas, they fell over.
Yeah, I mean, we went out. You and I went out to scout it, and I remember we were like, meeting with the site reps, and it was like, what can we do? What can we get away with? And it was like an old, besides the mountain and the mine itself, there was houses that was, I guess, once a prison. And, we were just driving around and spitballing ideas. And we're like, what if we, and they're all like dually trucks, and it was like, what can we pull a house off the foundation with one? And the guy was like, yeah, no problem. He's like, okay, great. It was like, all right, so then there's the dirt road all the way up to the minefield, and it was just, electrical pole. I was like, what if we pulled one down and then maybe 4 or 5 other ones came down at the same time? He's like, sure, as long as you clean it up
Sure.
and don't block the road. You're like, oh my God, this is phenomenal. So we just had the run of the place, but it was just the most ridiculous thing ever where we were like chopping telephone poles and then putting big chains on them and just yanking them down and just watching, domino effect of ding, ding, ding. They're all just quarter mile up the road. You just see a bunch of telephone poles coming down. And it was like a lot of the time it was just better than we ever imagined. And it was unbelievable the stuff we got away with on the show.
Well, another reason why I brought Toughest Trucks up, because that was another great moment in my Top Gear career with you, where we had a scene where we wanted to pull one of the an engine, a switch engine in a car, and a train. We wanted to pull a train with one of the
Locomotive.
trucks.
Yeah.
That's right, locomotive. So they had one there, and it worked. And for the listeners that don't know my background, I used to drive freight trains. I was an engineer for the good old Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad a lifetime ago. So I was there, and I'm like, "Hey, I can move this for you." And the site rep's like, "Really? You know how to drive this?" I'm like, "Yeah, I was an engineer." And he's like, "Okay." So I fired that thing up, hooked it up to that rail car. Immediately started. I backed up and immediately derailed the car. I had to put it back on the rails and dig the flanges out. But yeah, I was able to get it down there and put it in place, and we were able to pull it with the truck. And
yeah, I don't think that train had moved in decades.
No,
and you were like, yeah, let me see what I can do, And 8 minutes later, he's like,
yeah.
And I was like, oh my God. But that's the one thing you should all know about Donnie is that guy was I've known him for a decade, and he still surprises me where I learned something about him, and he's done every job on the planet, and the guy can just pretty much do anything. And that was a perfect example of oh, the train, that'd be cool to move it, but I don't know. We have to probably get the train conductor to come out here. And he's like, no, that's me. I got this. And was just another beautiful thing.
I will say I've been lucky enough. Top Gear has given me a lot of opportunities to be able to get in the seat of a lot of different vehicles and trucks and tractors and boats and motorcycles. And, it's been so much fun because I did grow up driving a lot of crazy, weird things. And, on a farm, you get to drive a tractor and you kind of learn. So everything's the same. It's a couple levers, couple of pedals, and you can figure out how to do it. So that was a lot of fun. But yet another epic journey for me with you, Gary, was when we did the Sturgis episode. And I mean, there's so many things about that Sturgis episode that was amazing. A few of them that ring the top of my mind were, well, at least I got to ride the street glide because I knew how to ride a motorcycle. So I got to ride the street glide around the Black Hills. We'll get back to the Black Hills in a second. I got to ride it down through Sturgis. So much fun. We got to go to Buffalo Chip and experience a Leonard Skinner concert for the first time. And that's where they sit on their Harleys and they rev the engines instead of clapping between songs. So that was pretty epic. But probably the funniest part of the whole shoot for me was the leather store up in the Black Hills. that scene. Gary is a great director, y'all. He has an amazing vision. And
let me set it up. The vision I had was, the boys come into Sturgis, and the Sturgis is obviously a very, very specific type of person in that town during that event. And I, the setup was like, we clearly need to, in order to infiltrate this culture, we need to dress the part. So the boys, Rut in his plaid shirt and Adam in his like New York hipster jacket, leather jacket, and Tanner, just being Tanner, was like, all right, let's go at least dress the part. So the idea was 3 boys way out of their element, and then cut to like, slow motion of them coming out and being all leathered up. But I was like, this, be better if we could do it in slow motion and they're coming through like smoke or fog or something. And we came up with that idea when we were in South Dakota, when it was just a really, our resources were limited.
Limited.
So I think it was your idea to go to a boat store and get a flare.
I don't know if it was my idea. I don't know, but sure.
But I was like, that's genius. A flare would be great. So we go to this family owned, like it's probably been there 100 years, leather shop, beautiful leather shop, one of the best in Sturgis, most well known. And it's just like beautiful cabin, and they have a showroom, and it's just gorgeous, like handmade leather. Everything is just, stitched, hand stitched, gorgeous and expensive stuff. And we go, and the final scene, and the sun's going down, so we have to shoot another scene anyway. So we're like, we gotta hurry up. So we got everybody dressed, and everyone's in their leathers, and it was hilarious. And it was like, all right, light the flare, and we light the flare. And I've had a lot of experience, but don't have a lot of experience with flares. So we have the flare go off. We asked permission, have the flare go off inside the showroom. And then the cameras are outside shooting high frame rate, and it's like action. And the boys come out of the flare smoke, and it's like this big reveal, Reservoir Dog kind of shot. And it was hilarious. And it was like, oh, got it, but let's do it again. So we had like 3 or 4 takes of it. Keep that flare burning. And it was after like the 3rd take, like the flare was just, it smoked everybody out. Nobody could like see. So
it was orange smoke, by the way. It was like orange smoke.
Yeah. And then like, all right, pack it up. We got to go to the other scene. And the owner and his family were there, and all they wanted was like a picture with all the guys. So I was like, yeah, I'll get you that picture. Don't worry. Up on. Tanner, quick, take a picture of these guys. Boom, run, go. We got to go. And then when the smoke settled, like it was like this much film all over the entire showroom, all the leathers, everything. We had just destroyed their showroom, and it was the guy luckily was just the sweetest man on the planet. He's like,
Thank
"Yeah,
God.
don't worry,
Thank
I got
God they
it.
were
I'll,
nice. Oh my gosh, I
I'll
can't
figure it
believe
out."
I don't know. I remember it. We had that. So I kind
Donnie,
of
keep the flare going. Keep the
I
flare
kind of
going. You're like,
I remember the flares were
okay.
on the sides and the smoke and the wind was blowing like through, the shop. I mean, so they got a good dose of that orange smoke. But it looked really cool
Oh,
in the scene, Gary. So
yeah,
no one was hurt.
we
No
got it.
animals were hurt while making that scene.
Just a lot of cleanup.
Maybe just
Oh,
stained a little. Oh,
uh,
yeah. See, shenanigans, the things that happens that people don't know about.
it really was. It was so fun. That was a great trip for sure.
That was fun. And then we also had a couple other moments, Gary. One of the moments with you and Beardy and I when we went to uh, oh, I can't even think of it. Not Stone. Where we saw the presidents.
Oh, Mount Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore. Gosh, that's what
Yeah.
escapes my memory.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a nice little scout out there, the three of us. I got some good selfies of all of us.
Yeah.
But my favorite memory from that trip was, I don't know why I had to be on the back of the scooter with you, Gary, but
Oh
but for
God, that
some
was the
reason,
best.
I was on the back of the scooter
Well,
and we
the
were
property
rolling.
was so big, and we had to get around, so we were like scouting. I'm like, Donnie, get on, let's go.
I mean, it was pretty awesome. So I have that memory. That one's close to my heart. I mean, I don't even know how we rode on. I don't even know how I fit on the back of that thing. It's pretty
Oh
pretty
my
bad.
God.
Pretty bad.
I hope you get to share a photo with the viewers, because that was
Oh,
indeed
I'm
such
sure
a
they're
fun trip.
probably laughing right now as they saw the photo of me riding on the back of that scooter with you. Like, no, yeah,
So,
no reason at all. Um, so sometimes we also get into dangerous situations. We don't really think about the
oh,
dangerous situations we get into until after they occur.
yeah.
Um, but we were doing another episode. Gary Shaffer was our director. For those of you that don't know, it was an episode called '80s Cars, and we were filming a scene similar to Back to the Future at the same mall. So we did a
We're
scene.
recreating.
We are basically recreating that. So we had this little Toyota TR2 or something that we drove, and then behind me they lit the fire. It was just the DeLorean disappeared and the fire from the tracks were there. And then the other one was Gary. I get to set and he's like, "Hey Don," he's like, "Hey man, how do you feel about driving that Grand National? Just to the other side of those bags of fuel, and then it'll go boom." I'm like, "Okay, I'll drive on the other side." So I'm getting ready. He's like, "Hey, buddy," he's like, "Hey, man, how do you feel about driving the car through the two bags of fuel?" I'm like it's gonna go boom. He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Well, okay, I don't know. Let's talk with Bill Shermer." So we consult with Bill Shermer, our pyro guy, and he's like, "Yeah, you'll be fine, Don. Don't worry. You're just gonna feel a little heat. Don't worry, it'll be fine." And I'm like, "Okay." So here I go. I go to do it. And oh, and by the way, he's like, "You got to get up to 35 mile an hour, and then you have to stop in front of that locked off camera that's there." So I'm like, "Okay." So I get in there. I don't have, I don't, it was crazy back then, you guys. We didn't have a fire suit. There wasn't a balaclava. There wasn't a fuel cell. The lines weren't bled out at all. It was just a working Grand National and Donnie in a car. So we're about to go, and I call on the walkie. I call Bill Shermer. I'm like, "Hey, Bill." I'm like, "So who's queuing you? I'm usually queuing." Like, he's like, "Don't worry. We'll tell you to go, and then I'll just queue the bags off of you." So I think it's Gary. I think you're the one that calls action. You can hear it on the video. And then I get going, and then I go through the fireball, and it is bright and hot. And I'm like, "Oh, shit." And then I remember I had to get up to about 35, and then as soon as I could see the locked off camera appeared, and I had to stop right in front of it. And I did it. It was great. And I get out, and I'm like, "Wow, that was nuts. I can't believe I just did that." And so what does Gary say? He's like, "Hey, buddy, you got one more in you?" So I did one more
Clearly
for
need
Gary.
different angles for coverage.
Yeah. So I did one more for Gary, and I'm here to talk about it. So it was an amazing time. It's a great story that I like to tell about. Yeah, thanks.
It
Thanks for
really
putting me through
was.
the
That
fireball,
was
Gary.
so funny, because I think it was a bigger fireball than we had suspected. I was excited about it, obviously, but it was. But
I'm looking at a
it
photo
was
right
just
now,
a
and it's
huge-
looking like, I don't know, about 40, 50 feet in the air is the top flame.
Oh,
Pretty awesome. Pretty
oh
awesome.
my god! I hope we have audio of that, of the walkie chatter too. Everything coming in like, all right, Donnie, all set? Okay,
No,
roll
God.
cameras.
I wish I had
And
that.
action.
Oh. And then,
Pretty good.
and then
Let's do it
after,
again.
and then you can hear all the car alarms going off in the parking lot too. That was, so yeah, we did this. Rupert pointed it out, or Dan pointed it out. Someone did that. We did this in a parking lot in East LA.
Yeah, in a working mall.
Yeah,
You know, I think it was like 10 in the morning or something, and we had to be done by the time the mall opened. But the people were still coming in, like the employees were coming, and the early birds were parking. So it was just like it was quite an attraction. We were gathering a lot of attention by all means, but we got the shot, and once again, it's just like
a 50-foot loud fireball would totally garnish the attention of some shoppers at a shopping mall.
Yeah, go figure. I mean, that was just Top Gear in a nutshell. It's like every time it was like you never had enough time. You always had a problem with the cars because a lot of the times we were having used cars, so there was always breakdowns. So we were just like improvising every step of the way how we could just get enough footage to tell the story. Sometimes a lot of the times we're just pushing cars through frame because they had died. And,
yep, we've done that a few times. Push it into frame, and here we are.
Just push the
barely made it
thing into frame. Sun's going down. We need it. So yeah,
but the sun never sets. Though the sun never sets, right?
God, indeed, that was the irony of the production company name, right?
Yes, the sun does set, and time waits for no man. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's not enough time to shoot it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't get it. Oh, those are the days. So another just so many memories, Gary. So many fun behind the scenes shenanigans with you, man. I mean, I'm just gonna jump right to it. I'm gonna go right to New York because we did an episode in New York where we were in the Hamptons, filming out there in the Hamptons at some nice golf course. Tanner was driving some Jaguar, brand new golf course, really modern. And that's when Tanner decided to do donuts and burn rubber on the brand new tarmac at the brand new golf course in the Hamptons.
Well, I guess, and the backstory, right, was that it was the Long Island Grand Prix location that James Dean raced in, right? And then
that's right.
And Paul Newman raced in, and then back in the day, and then now it was this beautiful, super snooty golf course that we were like, oh, maybe we'll like to recreate a couple of the memories back in the day from here. And it was just like the juxtaposition between the posh and just us down and dirty, dirt bags, let's tear this thing up.
It was, and back then, I feel like we were just like caged wild crew members, that just barely tame to get through a shoot, but then after, like, they just go crazy. Like on our drive back through the city was pretty interesting, if you recall. Doing some car-to-car stuff on the way back. And then we were filming in New Jersey at this recycling plant. It was hotter than the hell. It smelled. I think we were going to crush one of the cars. And so you guys were handling all of that while I was over. I don't think you remember. I was over in the car trying to look for places to stay so that way we could get a place in Times Square so we could all stay and then, go out and have some fun. So that's exactly what we did, except we stayed out all night and we didn't go back. Except we went back and got our stuff, and then good old Gary, Captain, he pulled it together and drove us to the airport in the morning. So I can't thank you enough for that, Gary.
Oh my God. How we made that, I have no idea. It was amazing.
We were young. We were young. We were young and dumb.
Yes,
and we're
indeed.
like, yeah, we can do it all nighter. Now, not so much. Like, what? I'd be like, that's crazy talk. That's just crazy talk.
Sorry, that
There ain't
dog
no
is
way.
going to stop talking at some point. No, listen.
That's all right. We all have dogs. All
Um,
the listeners know
yeah,
they have dogs. They
yeah,
love hearing a good dog
she's old and blind,
whine.
and yeah,
See, there's forgiveness for the old and blind. Now, if she were a
see, I do have
puppy,
a heart.
and yeah, I'd be like, "Dude, come on, shut your dog up."
I've only tried to kill you 100 times, but I have a heart.
Um, killing people, Gary. Have you ever? Do you have any episodes where you it was close? Where you thought,
Um, you didn't do Jackson Hole, did you? Were you in Jackson Hole for
no, I did
the?
not.
That was pretty
I've seen some
nutty.
photos.
Yeah, we've had. We were always cutting it close. And the Jackson Hole episode was, can a GTR beat a snowmobile? So we had the greatest snowmobile riders, two of the best snowmobile riders in the world at the time, versus Tanner and a beautiful brand new cherry red GTR. And it was amazing because we would we were it was just a nonstop blizzard, and we had and met with the snowmobile riders and see what they were capable of, and we built some jumps, and it was amazing because I always wanted the car drifting into frame, and the snowmobile jumping over up and over, and we built a couple of ramps to do that, but these guys would go twice as high, exceeding twice as high that I thought they would be able to do. So some of the times we would have this perfect little drift by Tanner, and the snowmobile would go out of frame because he was so high.
Oh no!
So,
Oh
but it was
no!
pretty nuts. But we had a little chase scene going on where they're sort of coming into the finish, and it was just it was choreographed, and Tanner is always on point. So, but I just remember it was a little miscue, and definitely wasn't Tanner's fault. But he was coming down this snow. It was a road that was kind of plowed, but it was still snow packed. And the snowmobiles came out of the forest and landed on the road, and they're side by side. And the guy just took off, and I guess he fishtailed, and then Tanner just went over the sled. Luckily, the guy got out of frame in time, but Tanner went over the sled and was just it was such a close call, but it was crazy. But it was that was a pretty scary moment, and thank God, obviously, no one was hurt, and we'd always damage vehicles left and right. We were pretty good at that consistently, and I think we were banned from I think 4 or 5 different rental companies because of all the rental cars that we in Suburbans we've trashed in our day.
Enterprise,
But
Enterprise,
yeah,
they weren't too happy with it a few times. the old when they're like, well, when you check that box collision damage waiver, that doesn't mean you can physically damage it and just return it and walk away, which we did a lot.
I
Thank you, Enterprise. We
remember
love Enterprise.
another fun one was, remember when we were in Monterey, and
Oh yeah,
the only way I took the job was I have to be back for my 40th birthday surprise party that I knew about. But I was like, all right, yeah, don't worry. Ashley had planned this dinner, and I was like, all right, yeah, I'll be back in time. And we were down in Monterey, and I think the last
we're
flight
down by
out
Bixby
was
Bridge.
yeah, exactly. So then it was and then I remember you told the cops that we had, because we always had cops that shut down the roads, and we would do our business. And he's like, listen, I got to get this guy back to San Francisco Hotel or Oakland or SFO or Oakland.
San Jose.
Airport. San Jose, right? And then it was this is the last flight, and he's got to be on this flight. The officers were like, no problem. And I think it was 45 minutes, probably.
Yeah. No, it was
maybe longer. And
I think longer.
These officers, it was hilarious. So the officers with their lights on are flying down the freeway. We are in a Suburban behind it, flying down the freeway. So nobody could figure out what the fuck was. It was like a reverse car chase, where it was we were chasing the cops, and then I think there was a cop behind us, just helping us on the tail too. But we were going 110 miles an hour, like flying in the freeway, just just so I could get to the airport to make
That's
this
right.
flight. And you were like, "Go, officer! You got this! You got this!" And I was like,
He
"Donnie,
was
you're
the
a
coolest. So
fucking
he
legend.
was
If
like,
you get me there, you're a fucking legend." And you,
he's like, yeah, no problem. He basically, they took us to, I think, Watsonville. He's like, I'm gonna peel off here. I'll help you until Watsonville. The rest of the way you're on your own. But we made up enough time to get you there, and you got to the airport and you got your flight. Well, we had to catch another flight, but you made
oh,
your 40th birthday. I was proud of
it
that.
was.
I love
I'm
our
proud
officers,
of
our
you.
CHP. I mean, they've hooked us up more than once, so I'm glad you were able to make your 40th birthday, Gary, because we don't want to reap that
It
if
was,
you didn't make it. Oh my God. You've never seen
yeah,
an angry Gary, guys. An angry Gary, he just carries around a baseball bat, slapping it in his hand, just like waiting to hit someone upside the head or,
oh.
you know,
Well, I
smack
had
him in the balls.
Tanner and Rutledge and Adam to try to keep in line. I mean, those guys, I'd be like, "Come on, fucking concentrate," and they would like, "Hey, Rut," and Adam would have some new joke, and I was like, "No, the fucking sun is going down. Let's fucking shoot this." And they're like, "Oh, okay, Gary. Good hair, Gary. What's the hair looking like right now?" And I was like, "Just shut the fuck up and fucking let's go." So
That's
those
funny.
guys
That
definitely
but we
kept it fun.
did we were able to get back at them at times, and Adam did mention something about this. I think Tanner did too. We did the 500 for 500 road trip where we started in Santa Monica, and they had cars for $500. They didn't make 500 miles, and these vehicles that we got them were just, it was some disgusting stuff. We took it to a lab, I think, on our way, and they did a test, and they found a lot of semen, a lot of human hair, dog hair, feces,
Yeah.
a lot of stuff. So we got them back for once. Not we, I should say. I think Top Gear got them back, or at least humbled them a little with some of the vehicles we threw them in.
I remember we had, and again, another one of those, like, we were just making stuff up on the fly, but it was like, let's get, what's iconic San Francisco? Oh, the trolley cars. Okay. Let's have the vehicle break down right on the trolley tracks. So it's like,
Yeah.
like broke down on the track, trolley car comes in, guy gets out, like, what the fuck? Either everyone's screaming and yelling, like, blah, 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 blah. Like, we shot it, we got it, like, and then literally was like, all right, we got to get in the car, go. So then Rut gets back in the car, turns the car back on because there's nothing wrong with it. We got our scene, and then we just kept motoring all the way up to Twin Peaks for our finish. Just funny things like that nonstop.
That was another one where our officers, our SF PD, were guiding us all the way up, and then we had to get the boys to SFO for their flight, and they escorted them all the way, got them on their flight. So I feel like that happened a lot. So it really was nice having our officers work with us for ITC, and then any high speed stuff we're doing, or traffic breaks, to be able to get down to the border. So it was a lot of fun. I love working with the police. What about that 500 for 500? What was up with that gator pool toy? Because I was looking through my my feed, my photo feed, and I got a lot of photos of you in that gator pool toy, testing it out for Rutledge.
I don't remember why we had that, but I was like, I remember it was like, what car did he have? Did he have, like, I forget why we put him in a damn costume, but I was like, I want to put him in a costume, like,
he had
so
a Ford
could,
Fiesta type little red thing, I think.
Yeah,
I want to say.
But I remember it was like, it was just, I forget the backstory of it, but it was like, oh, I want to put him in a costume, and Rut was like, no, I'm not doing a costume. It's like, come on. He's like, all right, whatever, you figure it out. And I remember I, like, came up with this idea, and it was like, a day before the shoot, so it was very limited what I could find in the meantime. But one of the producers found a alligator, like, raft at the pool store, and I was like, oh, what if we cut it out? We could turn it into the costume itself. And it was great because then Rut was such a sport, and he put this fucking thing on, and he just looked like such a doofus.
Yeah,
and it was so funny and fun. And then, like, the whole thing wouldn't fit in the car, so, like, he slammed the door on the tail, and the tail, like, as we're going up PCA or the Highway 1, the tail was hanging out the side door, and it was just like such really funny memories of things like that. That we were just again making up on the fly, and the boys were such sports to just roll with it.
That was another on our long trips. We would have to stay awake because we would have to film. So all you don't know what we do or did on Top Gear is we would start, let's say in Santa Monica on this trip, we'd have a 7 a.m. call time. Well, we'd have to make it to Santa Cruz where we would make our day by 7:30 p.m. So we would drive and film, stop, drive, film some more. So we'd have to make it all the way up there. So we get tired sometimes. So we'd have to play some games on the walkies. So we played this amazing game on the walkie. So hopefully some don't get offended about, but it's called the Vagina game. And you basically replace words with vagina for music lyrics or TV shows or movies. So that was always a great way to stay awake. Probably wasn't the best. I don't know if human resources would have loved it too much.
Yeah,
or
PC,
any type PC. Yeah, but that was them. But it kept us awake, and it was a fun game. So, kids, if you're out there, you should try sometime. It'll keep you awake.
Whatever it takes.
Yeah,
whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes to stay awake. I mean, you gotta.
Did you do Tangent? Where there's so many memories that sort of flood my mind. But were you down in Gainesville for muscle cars, American Muscle Cars?
No, I was not in that one.
That was with Travis. That was another amazing one where we had American Muscle Cars going through Gainesville, and then we ended up at the raceway down there, the dragster. But we were in this. I remember we were in this small town, and the bit was what car was like the loudest, essentially.
Oh,
so we were thinking, think about like a really small town, southern town, all mom and pop shops, probably no more than 100 yards tops of all the stores along the main street there. And the idea was, someone would go first, and they would go down the street, and like all the cars were parked. I think it's a one-way street. All the cars were parked diagonally, and you go down and like, how many car alarms could you set off? So Adam would go first, couple car alarms, Rut second, more car alarms, and then it was Tanner's turn. And when we scouted, we met with the mayor of the town, and he was such a huge Top Gear fan.
That always helps.
And it was hilarious because it was like, can he strike the road a little bit, if he kind of just lit it up a bit. And the guy was like, no problem, it's fine. Like, okay. So then the first take was like, all right, Tanner, go. So meanwhile, the whole town is out. The cars are parked. It's their personal cars, all, and anyway, we invited everybody to come. You could park your car along the street, and you could watch from the sidewalk. And the stores were open. It was the middle of the day. And so it was Tanner's turn, and Tanner lit this thing up where he, literally burned the tires for like 15 seconds before he even moved the car. And then he just creeped 100 yards down this road. There was so much smoke, and it was billowing into all the storefronts. So, and we had a drone in the air, and you could see just like people like scattering, like, oh my God, what is happening? And it was so funny because it was bigger than we had ever. It was phenomenal. We had cameras straight down the street, looking straight up, where you just see this car and then a billowing of smoke behind it. And people just like, oh my God, car alarms are going off, total chaos. And we striped the road, and it was I was like, oh my God, they are going to kill us. We got to get out of here. And the fire chief loved it. And he was at the end of the road, and we cut. Tanner got out of the car. I was like, that was hilarious. I love it. And I was like, can we do one more?
Of course, Gary, can we do one more?
One more. And he was like, just do it. Just do it. So we had to change the tires. Victor changed the tires, and we did it a second pass. And now, the public knew what to look out for. So a lot of the stores had closed up shop, closed their doors.
Don't want that smoke.
But people were so excited, to see it again, because they knew what to expect this time. And he did it perfectly again, always, as usual, just strike this road. And it was, I mean, I couldn't believe that the mayor let us do this. The fire chief, everyone was like, all they wanted was photo ops at the end of this, like photo op with Tanner and Brett, and I was like, yeah, sure, the boys are great, they'll take pictures. I'm like, boys, you got to take pictures of these guys because we got to make nice with this town.
I love that. I love going to small towns like that where they're more genuine, they're more enthusiastic and excited about us being there and about Top Gear, where you can't get away with that here in LA because no one cares about anyone filming here. So it's nice to get outside of LA, outside of California, to these small towns, these small, communities that love it, embrace it, welcome us, and they have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, the photo,
and it really was. It was like most places we went. They really welcomed us, and that was such a nice part of it. Hopefully, they welcomed us. They still loved us when we left, but who knows if that can be? I don't know if that's 100% true. But the funniest thing about that story, to wrap it up, was I remember like Sylvie, I think like 8 months later, had looked at Google Maps, and Google Maps still had the stripes, all the burn marks down this main street just outside of Gainesville. It was so amazing.
You gotta leave your mark on Gainesville. You gotta love that.
Yeah.
Did you direct the bug out vehicle episode? That wasn't you, right?
No. Where was it?
It was a bug out vehicle. They built on a Camry chassis, this bug out vehicle.
No.
They shot up in I forget who it was, because I did talk about that story with Tanner about getting nailed by Stig on some driving shots. It was a really shitty car to drive. That's all. You didn't miss anything. But it's so funny you say about taking photos with the guys. They're really well known worldwide. And when I was down in Guyana for a shoot for Naked and Afraid, I before I went down to the bush, I had a couple days, so I went out to this bar during the day and met some guys, and they were really nice, and they found out what I did and that I worked on Top Gear. And so they're huge, huge, huge fans. So I was like, well, let me see if I can FaceTime Tanner and see if he'll, say hi to the guy. So I text him and he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. So I FaceTime him, and I literally have at that point like 12 to 20 guys around me trying to say hi to Tanner on FaceTime. And, of course, they couldn't hear anything. He couldn't hear them. And then said goodbye. And then I went back to the bar and they slammed down a bottle of El Dorado rum. Like, here you go. I'm like, what? I'm like, this is awesome. I'm like, let me see if I can get a hold of Adam. So I text Adam, and he's like, yeah, sure, Pally. So I FaceTime him, and, 20, 25 people around, like freaking out, saying hi to him. And then I go back and sit down. And they slam another bottle, 22-year-old rum on the bar. And I'm like, this is great. Like,
it has its perks, right?
Yeah, I'm like, I wonder if I can get a hold of Rutledge. And then he wasn't available, unfortunately. But I did get a couple of bottles of rum out of it. So they are really well known worldwide. And then hopefully, they'll be able to get on another show together and do some more fun shenanigans like we had on Top Gear USA.
Yeah, I agree. It was, again, I've been at this decades. We've all been at it decades, and I would say single-handedly, it's one of the greatest shows I've ever done. Consistently, it was just always some new challenge, and it was dirty and grimy, and we were, short turnarounds, and we were going to way out, far out places that had. A lot of places didn't even have hotels. We were sleeping in tents in some of these places, or barracks, and different wherever we just wanted to make the show. And that was the best thing. The crew single-handedly just loved the show and loved our vision for what we were trying to do. That it was just all hands on deck, whatever it takes, and that was the motto, and it worked for years. So,
I think that really did help having, like you just said, like the crew having, they were vested in the show. They loved this show, so they would go the extra mile for the show. They wouldn't really complain about the little things. I mean, we still bitched, but I mean, the love of the show and being able to work on the show, I think it was a privilege. So I think we were really lucky to be able to do that, and to meet everyone that we did along the way, including a lot of the crew that are still close friends, to today. I mean, I know distance, and we all have to work, and it takes us out of town. for a certain amount of time, but we're all still friends when we come back to it, and we haven't talked in how long, and you just pick up like it was yesterday. So
Yeah.
it's nice to have that.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was a family atmosphere then, and it's and it is. It's a family for life, and it's there's very few. There's tons of production stories, but like I think consistently Top Gear delivers amazing stories and amazing experiences that we all had that we'll never forget. So for that,
lifelong experiences, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Oh, Gary.
100%.
It's amazing. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast, Gary. Hopefully you come back. You can think of some other fun stories. They could be stories from any other show or brand of content that you may have done, because we all have those crazy stories from our work. It seems like it's like the gift that keeps on giving. So,
yeah,
but
absolutely.
You guys don't forget to check out the website at Go For Donny. GoForDonny.com. This will not only be an audio podcast, but this will also be a YouTube video podcast. So make sure you check it out so you can see all those lovely references, photos, and videos of why we were actually laughing and smiling today on the show. And you can also follow us on all the social media links at the bottom of our website. Don't forget to check out Go For Donny Switch It Channel 2, where I'll be firing off some questions to our guest, Gary Shaffer, with the help of Max Hillhouse on Max's Motor Minute later. So once again, thanks, Gary. Thanks for listening. Thank you, everyone else, for listening to GFD. Don't forget to subscribe so we can grow our audience. And don't forget hashtag HTFU. Go for Donny, Gary.
Donnie. Go for Donnie. Gary for Donnie. I love it. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks, Gary. Cheers, buddy.
Production for Donny.
See you, bud. Take care.
Go for Donny. Locations for Donny. Go for Donny.
Production for Donny.
Go for Donny. Locations for Donny. Go for Donny.
Habitat for Donny.
Go for Donny. Hey Donny, what the hell are they doing?